Good afternoon to our viewers in Europe, a good morning to all of you in the US, and a good evening to those of you who are watching us from the US. We have hundreds of participants joining us just now from across the globe, from Tatarklubben here in Denmark, to the member of the American Chamber of Commerce community across Europe, to the HBR subscriber base globally. A warm welcome to you all. My name is Klaus Mosbeck, I'm the club chair of Tatarklubben, and we are live from our studios in Copenhagen. HBR's mission is to improve the practices of management in a changing world. And while the world has certainly changed, and our aim with these events are to provide you with the inspiration on how to lead and manage through the pandemic. Before we get started, I just have a few technical remarks. The live streaming session is best enjoyed on either a tablet, desktop or a laptop in a Chrome browser. So be sure you have the most updated version of Chrome and use ideally a wired internet connection. So Wi-Fi can sometimes cause an issue. So if there's an issue, please refresh the browser. And what you can also do is click on the settings icon on the lower right hand side of this live streaming feed. There is an icon where you can lower the setting or the resolution, the quality of the feed to 240 pixels. So that should resolve the issue. We're first going to have Joe Pine come on, and he's going to talk in 25 minutes about his book, and then do feel free already now to start joining in on the session with your questions, with your comments, and we'll address them at the end of his presentation. The session will be recorded and uploaded to our Vimeo channel, so do feel free to share this in your network, and it should be available roughly within 24 hours right here on this website. So let me tell you a bit about today's presentation. The worldwide governmental response to COVID-19 has devastated many sectors in the global economy. And it is those enterprises firmly in the experience economy that has been hurt the most. So what should you, as an enterprise, particularly one hard hit by the corona crisis, do in response? To answer this question, I have with me no other than Joe Pine. Joe is an internationally acclaimed author, speaker and management advisor to Fortune 500 companies and entrepreneurial startups alike. An author of 4 books and numerous HBR articles, he currently lectures at Columbia University and has taught at Penn State, Duke University, Minnesota, UCLA and Harvard. Today he'll share some of the ideas from his global bestseller, The Experience Economy. Originally published in 1999, HBR Press has just re-released it. It is more relevant than ever. Please join us. Thanking Joe Pine. A warm welcome to you, Joe. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus. It's a pleasure to be here with Tatarklubben to talk about the end of the experience economy. Right? Is the experience economy ending because of what's going on in the world right now? Well, let's start by talking about what is the experience economy. And most of you may already know this, but this is the core framework of our book, and the experience economy, that talks about how we've gone from an agrarian economy based off commodities through an industrial economy based off goods through a service economy. And today we've entered an experience economy. An economy where experiences are the predominant economic offering, and experiences are what consumers and increasingly business people are looking for today. And what that means is that goods and services are no longer enough, that goods and services are everywhere becoming mere commodities. And so it is time to move beyond those goods and services for companies all over the world to staging experiences. And experiences are a distinct economic offering, as distinct from services as services are from goods. It's basically when you use goods as props and services as a stage to engage each and every individual in an inherently personal way, and thereby create a memory, which is the hallmark of the experience. Right? So we have entered an experience economy where experiences are the predominant economic offering, where again, they're what people look for today over goods and services. But what's happened with the corona crisis? Well, all these experiences are closed. It's devastated the experience sector of the overall global economy, that people can no longer go out there and have all of these wondrous experiences that they've come to know and to love. And so that's definitely been a devastating factor. But is it the end of the experience economy? Right? Well, of course not. right? It's not the end of the experience economy. What's happened is that we've just moved from physical experiences out there to digital experiences in here, from the public to the familial, right? And what that means is that more and more, as we've stopped going outside, video streaming has gone up. Video sharing technology with Zoom and Vimeo and so forth has gone way up. Music streaming has gone up. All of these ways of having experiences have gone. Why? Because we are experience-seeking creatures, right? We love experiences, and we're also social animals or social beings. We want to be with other people. We want to see other people. We want to experience with other people, right? But right now, again, it is on the physical side. And what you've seen, therefore, is a lot of innovation, where companies are figuring out how do we reach people digitally, where instead of physically as we have before. And so, for example, you have a number of different companies that have innovated new entire experiences. Like Quarantine is a video streaming nightclub, right, in New York City, right? So people can't come to actual nightclubs, so we're going to create a nightclub online, and they actually have an entry fee of about $10 an hour. They have a bouncer, right, who makes sure that you pay that entry fee before you get in. You can pay $80 to go into a private club with just your friends there and socialize with them with all the music that's playing, right? So just you see companies like this that immediately switch from the physical to the digital. You've seen other companies that have existed that have decided to add a digital layer onto their physical experience. This is one of my favorite retail companies in the world called Wingtip. And it's a men's store in San Francisco where the theme of the store is really solutions for the modern gentleman. And you can see the sort of things that they carry in Wingtip. And the co-founder of the company, Ami Arad, now a friend of mine, was reading our book, The Experience Economy, a previous edition of it, when he got to the point in chapter 3 where we asked, well, what would you do differently if you charged admission? He said, charge admission? I can't charge admission to a men's store, right? Nobody would want to come in. I wouldn't be able to sell my goods. But he kept thinking about it, and he finally hit upon the idea of creating not just a men's store, but creating a club, the Wingtip Club. And the Wingtip Club that he rented out the bottom 2 floors of the Bank of Italy building for the Wingtip store, and the top 2 floors for the Wingtip Club, open to men and women, and does charge for the time that customers spend with him, what members spend with him. The largest fee is a $3,000 initiation fee and $200 per month to be in the Wingtip Club. But of course, people can't go to the club now, right? It's closed down as well. So what are they doing is they're bringing the club to the people. They're taking all the things that they do inside and now bringing them outside with, of course, contactless meal delivery, with Zoom happy hours, with master classes from their chefs showing them how to cook things that they can provide to the ingredients they can provide to each member, as well as if you're a cigar aficionado or you love wine, you can have classes around those from master people at it. And then they also have, of course, with their takeout meals, is they provide not just the meal, but really it's more like an experience in a box, right? How do we help people create an experience in their own homes since they can't have it in the Wingtip Club? And you see, even companies like Disney, right? People can't come to a Disney theme park, so let's go bring an element of it to them. They're doing it in many different ways. One of my favorites is they've taken a lot of their stars from TV shows, from the movies, and they have filmed them online reading bedtime stories so that kids can get a little taste of Disney before bedtime when having, for example, the actress of Belle in one of the movies to be able to read the story of Belle and the Beast, right? The Beauty and the Beast there to them at night. So just a taste of it to keep it in people's minds. So is this the end of the experience economy? Well, no, it's absolutely not. And in fact, it's not the end of the physical experience economy, right? Again, we're doing a lot digitally, right? That makes sense right now. But again, people are social beings who want to go out there. They crave experiences. And what it means is really without any experience economy, there in fact can be no recovery. Because what my partner, Jim Gilmore, and I have been saying for over 20 years is that goods and services are no longer enough. Goods and services are no longer enough to ensure economic prosperity, to employ the amount of people that want and need jobs around the country. They're not enough to continue to grow GDP and the standard of living of people around the world. So without experiences, right, there is no recovery. We need a vibrant experience sector, right? A healthy economy can't come back without healthy people, but a healthy economy can't come back without the experience sector of that economy, right? Without experiences, there is no recovery. So will the experience economy come back? It must come back, right? It has to come back to, again, give us economic prosperity, to employ people, and to meet our needs as human beings. So that's one of the things that companies need to do right now, is they need to recognize that for all the human beings out there, they need to be human, right? It's about being human right now when they're in the midst of the crisis. Fortunately, we're starting to come out of that crisis around the world. But in the meantime, while we're still in it, and we're going to be in it until we get a full vaccine for everybody around the world, right? We need to be human. We need to help people where we can. We need to celebrate our first line responders and so forth. We need to volunteer things that we can provide. We have drug companies that are volunteering remdesivir, for example. We have many companies that are chefs that are out there and cooking for people that are in need of meals because their families don't have jobs to be able to supply them. We have one company in Belgium I know, Materialize, created a door handle design so that you can hit the door with your elbow, rather than touching it with your hands. And they released that online for 3D printers everywhere in the world, right? It's about being human. So that's the first way that we should respond to the corona crisis. And I think also, of course, of Tivoli there in Denmark, when people can't come into the theme park, what do? Is they open it up as a kindergarten. Let kids come in here and play. We're being incredibly physically distant from each other. I hate using the term socially distant, by the way. It's not about being distant socially. We can be together over the phone. We can be together over Zoom. We can be together in many myriad ways digitally, but we need to be physically separate from one another. And they provide a wonderful way to do it, right? And that's being human, right? Being human. So then in responding to the corona crisis, there's three basic things that I think companies should be doing. Right. So number one is that they need to refresh your places, right? Refresh your places. 2, redesign your offerings. And then 3, renew your capabilities. Right now is the time to be able to focus on these things. That if you focus on each of these, then you'll be able to be prepared for when we fully recover. Right. And you won't, now's not the time to hunker down and just sort of put our head in the sand and just wait till things are over. Instead, what we need to do is we need to be proactive and we need to innovate, like many of the examples that I've already talked about. So the first thing to innovate in is to refresh your places, right? Now's the time to go through and look at, things as simple as giving the place a paint job and looking at the design of things. But most importantly, about preparing for when we have people again. And there's many retail stores and restaurants that are starting to open up here, including my home state of Minnesota. And so what we need to do is make sure our places are safe, that people may catch the virus somewhere, but you want to make sure they don't catch it from you. And so there are ways to be able to do that, right? With the 6-foot distance, as we call it here in the US, 1.5 meters as it's called in Europe, right? And McDonald's has done a great job. Somebody told me about how wonderful they were. You go in there, they put the circles in, they know exactly where to stand. If you're not in the proper place when you get there, they'll turn their backs to you. They'll ignore you until you get there. And so that they're really teaching people how to be safe in what they're doing. So you aren't just safe there, you feel safe there. And that's what I'm calling safety theater. And we need to practice safety theater, where you are making sure that first of all, your employees are safe, right? That's the number one requirement, and that your customers are safe, because your employees aren't safe, your customers won't be. So you make sure your employees are safe in the environment, but then you demonstrate that you are, you show that you are safe, right? That's the key with safety theater, the number one thing that we need to do to be able to refresh your places. And then secondly, we need to redesign your offerings, right? You need to redesign your offerings. Now's the time to go beyond goods and services. If you're still a mere manufacturer, or you're a service provider, right? Now's the time to take this time that's been given us to rethink and say, how do we shift up into this experience economy? How do we ensure that we're ready for when people come out and they want those experiences again, that we're ready to give them the experiences that they crave and that they deserve? And so, and even if you are in the experience economy already, well, then let's redesign those in a way that makes them more engaging, that makes them more memorable, that makes them more experiential. So in the new re-release of the experience economy that we did earlier this year in 2020, we talked about 5 adjectives as being key to redesigning your offerings. And it's about being robust, cohesive, personal, dramatic, and transformative, right? Those are the 5 key things that we need to do: robust, cohesive, personal, dramatic, and transformative. Robust experiences are taking from wherever we think the experience are and expanding it out into all realms of experience. There are in fact 4 realms of experience. There's entertainment, educational, escapist, and aesthetic. And no matter which of those you are, how do you expand out and encompass more and more of that? That will make your experience more robust, therefore to make it more engaging and memorable as well. And then secondly, it's about being cohesive. Cohesive is about ensuring you have an experience that all hangs together, that everything fits together, that nothing happens that takes people out of the experience, and that they're now looking at their smartphone. You know, the smartphone is the number one competitor for attention in the experience economy, and you don't want people to drop out of your experience and start looking at their texts and their mails and so forth. So to do that, you need a cohesive experience. That's all about the theme. The theme of the experience is your organizing principle. Theming often gets a bad name because theme parks are about fantasy, that theme restaurants are all in your face about the experience. Instead, just think of the theme as the organizing principle for the experience. It's how you decide what's in the experience versus what's out of the experience. You know, like the wingtip store that I mentioned earlier with its theme, Solutions for a Modern Gentleman, right? It tells you about what type of products need to be there. It tells you about how you need to interact with people as modern gentlemen and so forth, right? It helps you decide what's in and what's out of the experience. So you need to come up with your own theme to have a cohesive experience. And then the third adjective is about personal. It's about being personal, about reaching inside of people and creating that experience within them, because that's where experiences actually happen. They happen inside of us in reaction to the events that are staged in front of us. And one of the key aspects of that, how I originally discovered this progression of economic value, is through customization. That I recognize that when you customize a good, you automatically turn it into a service. And when you customize a service, right, ask that question, well, what does it turn a service into? When you design a service that's so appropriate for this particular person, exactly the service that they need at this moment in time, then you can't help but make them go, wow, and turn it into a memorable event, turn it into an experience. So for my first book on mass customization, which is about efficiently customizing, about efficiently serving customers uniquely, how do you then use customization techniques to shift up this progression of economic value? To again, reaching inside of people and creating that individual experience within them. You know, that's what Starbucks does, for example, when it allows you to order any cup of coffee. They have billions of different options, but so you can get the one that exactly fits you, right? I don't drink coffee myself. I love tea though, and I love Starbucks chai. So my favorite drink is at Starbucks is a venti non-fat 6-pump no water chai extra hot for Joe, right? Every one of those things is about how it customizes that good and the services of creating it to create a distinctive experience for me. So you got to be robust, cohesive, personal, and then the fourth one is dramatic, right? You need to be dramatic because in the experience economy, it is about theater, that every business is a stage. And what drama is about rising up to a climax and coming back down again. But a lot of companies are afraid of drama. They just have these little flat things where not much happens. Well, if not much happens, then it's not going to be memorable. It's not going to be engaging. So how do you rise up to a climax of an experience and come back down again? What might be your signature moment that enables you to do that, for example, right? Then you can create a dramatic experience. So it is about designing the time that customers spend with you. And then finally, there's transformative experiences that you can create experiences that actually change people. And in fact, transformations is the fifth and final economic offering in this progression of economic value. Or again, because experiences can be commoditized. The second time you have an experience doesn't tend to be as good as the first. The third time, not as good as that. And when customers say, been there, done that, that's the hallmark of a commoditized experience. So using customization as the antidote to commoditization. Commoditization is like the law of gravity. If you do nothing else, you will be commoditized. But customization lifts you up. Customization enables you to differentiate yourself and therefore not be a commodity. And if you design an experience that's so appropriate for this particular person or company, that's exactly the experience that they're looking for at this moment in time, then you can't help but turn to what we often call a life-transforming experience, an experience that changes us in some way. And fitness centers are in the transformation business. All of healthcare is in the transformation business. Medical devices, management consulting, and a B2B, coaches of all stripes are all in the transformation business. Another great example that is increasingly happening recently in the last few years, I think we'll include even more and more when we shift back into a full-blown experience economy, is actually transformative travel. That people are most open to change when they travel, when they get out of their daily routines. And so there are organizations like the Transformational Travel Council that enables people to not just go out on have a great travel experience, but to use that experience to reflect on their lives, to reflect on themselves, to reflect on their impact on the world, and use it as a way of transformation. Right. So those are the 5 key things that we need to redesign our offerings. And then the last thing we need to do after we refresh your places and redesign your offerings is you to redo your capabilities. And in particular, right now, the capability that we need most is moving from physical to digital, to at least adding a digital component onto everything that we do, so that we can continue to reach people as they increasingly work digitally and want to buy digitally and interact digitally. Right, that's not going to go away. Right, we've sort of shifted from the future into the present by 5 years in terms of how much stuff has shifted digitally. So we need to be there as well, and really ideally fuse the real and the virtual. So for example, Ideal is a jewelry company in China. And what they did when this Corona crisis hit and their stores were shut down is they put all their sales associates up onto WeChat on their phones. And they started going around the jewelry store and they started describing products, lift things up and show them, show off. You can get into detail in that, tell stories about them. And then whenever somebody wanted to buy off of there, they could, in fact, then talk with them individually and complete sales. Right. So they're using their physical place as a digital showroom. And I think that's incredibly important. So many companies today is that we have a wonderful retail place, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a retail store. It could be a physical experience, a theme park, an escape room, whatever it might be. But then when we go online, it's just sort of merchandising. It's just product picture after product picture, little categories in that. There is no experience. It's got that incredibly flat, dramatic structure that does not allow experience to happen. But one of the things I think is important to understand is that if it's worth the money and the time to be able to have a live retail associate with a customer one-on-one in a store, well, then guess what? It's worth the time and the money and the effort to have a live retail associate with the customer online, instead of just throwing all that out there and just be a merchandising site. And that we can learn from. We can turn our stores and even create purpose-built showrooms to be able to show off our stuff online and get that one-to-one relationship with people that allows them to buy it. So I think that is a key thing that we need to, a new capability that we need to have coming out of this Corona crisis. And you think about Apple and what Apple has done with the wonderful design of all their products, right? They're probably the best designer in the world. And I don't even have all their products on here. We just give you a flavor of everything that they're doing, right? They're wonderful experience designers because they design for the experience that people have with their products. But they don't stop there, as they focus on the packaging as well, right? Are you focusing on the packaging of your products? Do you have people that are videoing the out-of-box experience as they open up the product and show it off to the world, right? Then you're not spending enough time on that packaging. And of course, Apple then also got into retail. And in retail, I don't know if you remember this, but when Steve Jobs in 2002 first announced that they were going into retail, he got lambasted in the business press. That people said, you're not a retailer, you're a designer, you're a manufacturer. Stick to your knitting, and you're gonna tick off all of your channel partners. And he proved them wrong by creating not just a retail store, but a retail experience where everything is live in there, where they can interact with geniuses, where they can learn, take classes, and go to workshops and so forth. And they don't rest on their laurels. They have renewed their capabilities in the last 2 or 3 years with their new sort of town square model, which is even more vibrant places that people are in. But of course, now even those aren't open. Right, those have been closed as well. They're starting to open up again around the world. So Apple also created new digital capabilities to do its activities online. So you can go online and meet with Apple specialists. Again, meet one-on-one with an Apple specialist online, because it's worth it online if it's worth it in a retail store. Take their workshops and put them online with fun how to do videos to help you get creative at home and so forth. Right, so even Apple is doing this, of redesigning or renewing their capabilities to be able to create fresh new ways of interacting with customers. And of course, that where it all comes together is the actual use of those products. Right, that's where it is. So the using of your goods needs to be an experience. When people interact with your services, it needs to be an experience. When you stage an experience, it needs to be personal, engaging, and memorable. So these are the 3 things that you need to do to be able to respond to the corona crisis. You again need to refresh your places, you need to redesign your offerings, and you need to renew your capabilities. If you do these 3 things, then you will be ahead of everybody else who is just hunkering down, who's not just trying to survive, right? You don't want to merely survive. You don't want to merely revive your business. You want to thrive in today's experience economy, right? And again, the experience economy will be back. Right now, the physical side is devastated. The digital side is growing, but that physical side will come back as we start to open up, as we have more testing, and eventually fully come back when we have a vaccine that allows people again to be comfortable interacting with each other around the world. Right. So when you think about this is the progression of economic value. Right. Even during the midst of the corona crisis, goods and services are no longer enough. Goods and services are mere commodities. In fact, people want goods and services to be commoditized, to buy them at the lowest possible price, at the greatest possible convenience, to spend their hard-earned time and the harder-earned money on the experiences and even the transformations that they truly value today. Right? That's what's going on. That's where we need to be as we come out of this corona crisis. Thank you, and back to you, Klaus.
Thank you so much for those inspiring words. Now is the time to engage with our audience, and I see that we already have quite a few questions coming in through the chat. One of them is from Nico from Amsterdam. He's curious to learn more about the transformational economy. And I must admit, when I read your book, I took 40 pages, which was a chapter on the transformational economy, and showed it to my staff and said, this is our new strategy. And I want to make sure that everyone also learns about what is next after the experience economy. Could you tell us a bit more about the transformational economy?
Sure, Klaus. I mean, the transformation is the key thing to understand. Is they're a distinct economic offering, just as experiences are a distinct economic offering from services, but you build them on top of each other. All these economic offerings are built on top of each other. Where you use experiences as the raw material to guide people to change. So you're helping them achieve their aspirations. So the key question is, what do you want to become? Right? What do you as a customer want to become? How can we help you do that? And what you really need is a 3-stage process where it starts off with diagnosis, like think about going to a doctor, right? What are your aspirations? What do you want to become? Where are you today? What is that gap that you have? And then how do we then close that gap through a series of experiences over time that allow you to achieve your aspiration. And then you need one more thing beyond that, which is follow through. Follow through is not follow up, which is, hi, how you doing? Follow through is ensuring that the transformation takes hold, that it endures and sustains through time. And so if you do those things, then what you recognize is that with transformations, the customer is the product, right? The customer is the product. It doesn't matter all that other stuff that you do, right? The inputs don't matter, only outcomes. That's what's key with the transformation.
And it's actually the responsibility of the company to make sure that that transformation takes place, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Well, I'll come back a little bit from that. So it is exactly what you want to do, but we have a phrase here in the U.S. and maybe you do in Denmark as well, but is that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And the idea is that you, as the guider of that transformation, can do everything that might be necessary for a customer transform. But if in the end they don't want to do it, well, then it's not going to happen, right? Because they have to transform yourself. That's why we use the term guide. You are guiding the transformation, but they have to do it themselves.
Coming back to the experience economy, we have a question from Katarina from Prague asking, are all companies in the experience economy, or are there some sectors and industries that are exempt?
Well, so I believe that every company in every industry can benefit from thinking about the experience by thinking experientially, if you want to put it that way. That particularly we talk about how generating demand, you can do that with an experience, no matter what your offering is, whether it's a commodity, a good, a service, an experience, or a transformation, is you can use experiences as demand generating mechanisms, as marketing experiences, really. And any company can benefit from that. Not every company has to do that. And there, you think about, we will always have commodity producers, we'll always have goods manufacturers, we'll always have service delivery. But they'll employ fewer and fewer people over time, be less and less a part of the GDP. And those companies, I mean, commodities are commodities, right? That's by definition, they're fungible. They are what they are. But again, you can use experiences to generate demand for them. You incorporate them into experiences and sell them through experiences, like a farmer's market, for example. I mean, at least half the reason people go, it's not just for the produce, it's for the experience of seeing it all put together, of the socialization aspect, of a leisurely stroll through the place, and that farmers market experience generates demand for the produce.
We also have a question about these ideas. Do they mainly apply to the customer-facing part of the business, or do they also affect how a company internally should operate among employees?
Yeah, I've just finished up an article on employee experience, and I think it's a very important thing that if you want to stage a great experience for your customers, well, then you've got to give your employees the wherewithal to be able to create that experience. And that's part of, I talked about dramatic experiences. Well, a big part of that is understanding that work is theater, and that you therefore need to direct employees to act and perform on your business stage. But even beyond that is we need to think about, every employee is a voluntary thing, is that they don't have to work for us. There are other opportunities out there. And as the economy comes back, of course, there will be many more opportunities out there. And so what is the experience that we give those, our employees? In fact, what is the transformation that we give our employees? That they should be thinking about how we as a company should think about how we provide great experiences and actually use those experiences to get our employees to become not just better workers, but better people, to have better capabilities, better skills, and so forth. Even if that means that they eventually leave because they've gained so much, because we've taken the benefit of that for our business. So I think focusing on employee experience and transformation is incredibly important.
We have a question from Andres asking, how do you measure the experiences? How do you know if you're improving?
Well, that measuring experiences is still much more of an art than a science, but there's a number of things that you can do. And we introduced in the new book that just came out earlier this year on the experience economy competing for customer time, attention, and money. We introduced new measures, particularly around time and money. So one is time well spent. Are you offering time well spent for your customers? Do they value the time that they spend with you? One way of thinking about that is that you can look, are they spending more time than average? If they're spending more time than average, then chances are they like that better. Now, there are actual physical ways to measure that. A friend of mine, Paul Zak, a famous neuroscience, has a company called Immersion Neuro, where they developed ability to measure via Fitbit-like devices on your wrist. They can measure through the blood flow what's happening with the brain and the level of what he calls immersion into the experience, or the engagement that people have with the experience. And now he can measure that over time. You can do it across multiple people. You can see how it's affected, what areas are hitting well, where are there low areas that something needs to happen. And you can sort of use it to create a dramatic arc of the experience, right? That drama that you need to have. And then the other key measure, well, we talk about return on experience in the new book too, as well. The other key one of my favorite sections of the book, is on the money value of time. Right? We all know about the time value of money, but you need to understand there's a money value of time, which is basically how much expenditures per minute are people getting from you, right? Are you getting from your customers, right? Is your expenditures per minute? You think about if you go to a Starbucks and you buy a venti non-fat 6-pump no water chai, whatever your favorite drink is, and you spend 45 minutes or an hour in the place enjoying the ambiance of Starbucks and socializing or doing work, whatever it is, well, guess what? You're going to end up spending 5 to 10 cents per minute. If you go to a movie, it's around 10 cents per minute that you get, and we're not counting all the food and things and memorabilia that you can buy at many experiences. I wish I could, but that's not public information, whereas the admission fees are. And if so, you get 10 cents per minute for a movie, US dollars. That's a very good experience. And sort of the benchmark is, right, or can you get up to 10 cents per minute? But Disney theme parks get around 20 cents per minute. And that's a great experience, right? If you get 20 cents per minute, then you're really doing a super job. But then there's all these newfangled experiences like escape rooms, like the Museum of Ice Cream, the Rose Mansion, and these Instagrammable places. They're getting 40, 45, 50 cents per minute. Right now, think about that, right? There is no limit to what you can get. You can be shot into space for around $2,000 per minute. If when we get to that point with Virgin Galactic and other things. So we can think about what is the expenditure per minute as a key measure for how we compare to all other experiences out there, and that's the money value of time.
Building on that point, we have a question from Cynthia. She's asking, how can you charge for an online experience, let's say a cooking class or what Wintep is doing, when there are so many free experiences out there online?
Well, it's hard to compete against free, but the key is to create more value than what you can get for free. And my tender belief is that if you don't charge admission, then customers aren't going to consider it to be a great experience, right? How much value does it have? How much can it be worth if you're not actually charging for it? If you don't care enough yourself to make money off of it for that direct experience that you're creating. And what charging admission does is it sends a signal that this is a place worth experiencing. And that's a key. And then it gives you the wherewithal to be able to create a great experience. So I could talk about scores of examples of companies doing. I'll mention one, Klaus, that I think is very telling and interesting, which is I can't pronounce Portuguese very well. Leo Oliveira in Porto, Portugal, is a bookstore, and it's fairly famous because it was inspired J.K. Rowling with the Hogwarts staircase. They have this beautiful staircase in there, and she was in Porto for a number of years while she was writing the books. And it's billed as the most beautiful bookstore in the world, and I believe it really is. Well, they got inundated and crushed with people, particularly after the Harry Potter books came out, of people sort of overrunning the store, coming in to gawk at it, take pictures and that, and never buying anything. So what they did is they put a ticket booth out across the street. Originally, I think it was €1, then €3. I think it's now €5, right? €5 just to get into the store. Now, that chases away some demand, so it's not as crowded in there. It's easier for people to shop. And they also say, but if you come to the store and you spend €5, well, one, we're getting value out of that. We've created this experience, or we're making money off it before it was all free. But they say also that you can get those €5 off if you actually buy something, right? So it's a wonderful mechanism for sales. They sell much more because they created an experience worth having and then charged admission for that experience.
It reminds me, there's a famous Danish florist close to our offices, Tay Andersen, that actually has a shop. You pay an entrance fee of 40 kroner, which is roughly $7, just to get into the store before you buy anything.
All right, so you have to send me that. So I'm hoping to be in Copenhagen in September to conduct an experience economy expert certification course, September 15th to 18th, right? Assuming everything goes well in the reopening and that. And so I'd love to go visit that and pay my admission fee and see that store. So yes, please do send me information on that, Klaus. I'll use it as an example now in future talks.
I'll be sure to do that. So on a digital topic, we have Lars from Denmark. He's asking, you mentioned the cell phone as sometimes showstopper, steals a show. Have you looked into involving mobile phones more in the future? And what complications do you see within that area? I know for me, it's always a sign of danger when the cell phones come out if I'm on stage and people are on their phone, I'm not doing very well, except if I'm polling.
Right. Well, that used to be the case, although you remember we were together with the University of Warwick and HBR in London in December. And it used to be that phenomenon, but now they're getting out their phones because they want to take pictures of your slides, right? Yeah. There were so many people taking pictures of the slides during that event. I remember that I actually had to sort of slow down sometimes so that so they could finish taking a picture where I wanted to move on. And one time I remember it's the framework was obviously not completely done. I've seen people take pictures. I'm like, well, wait a second, let me finish this and then take one of the completed. So other than that effect, right, where they're using it to get to share media, right? And we have a design principle that one of the things we did in the new book is we added to this basic design principle around theming, around creating cohesive experiences, that we always talked about mixing in memorabilia. The memorabilia were physical reminders of the experience, and people would want to take things with them that remind them of the experience and then encourage them to come back and tell others about it. But now they want to share media. Right. So it's not just about the physical memorabilia, it's about the digital media, the picture taking, the blog posting, the Yelp ratings and so forth that people are sharing. And so to make that easy is a very good thing. But there are also various ways to be able to use the phone and other technologies to really fuse the real and the virtual. Right. That's another book I wrote, Infinite Possibility, Creating Customer Value on the Digital Frontier, that is all about fusing the real and the virtual, the augmented reality, what I call augmented virtuality, and other things. So I think that not all experiences need to do this. There's some that should not do this because reality will now and forevermore, as we say in the book, provide the richest of experiences. But there are ways that we can augment that and mix it with virtuality and fuse these things together to create experiences that are simply not possible without the technology.
If you're interested in even more case studies on that, Anne-Marie Newton in the chat has actually offered some great ones as well. She's talking about a collaboration between Good Housekeeping and Amazon in the US. And she's also mentioning a case study with Mall of America. I have a question from Alan Nance.
Let me see if I can get where I live.
Okay. I have a question from Alan Nance, and let me see if I can get this correct. He says, in the MIT Sloan review of January, wonderful magazine, by the way, Fighting the Gravity of Average Performance, Reeves, Whittaker, and Deegan, so that will be Martin Reeves, that we had on previously, states that all companies, even Apple, have to fight gravity that pulls down the net effect of any experience. So a transformation becomes memorable over time. The question is, how can you fight gravity?
It's funny. I always use the law of gravity to describe commoditization, right? That if you do nothing, you will be dragged down over time. And so it is a defiance of gravity in that sense. So what the progression of economic value does is it provides us several different ways, or 3 different ways basically, of how do you defy gravity. So one is, as you're being dragged down by commoditization, you can innovate more in the economic offering that you're currently providing, right? If you're a manufacturer, you can innovate new goods that defy that law of gravity. If you're a service company, you can devise new services. If you're an experienced stager, you can come up and depict new experiences and so forth. Then secondly, you can shift up that progression of economic value, go to the next level or next 2 or 3 levels to be able to provide more value than you do today, often subsuming in the current product that you have into that next level of value, where you're charging for it and then often giving away the lower level of value. And then thirdly is the dynamic, and that's called commodification, by the way, when you commodify something and sell it as an economic offering. And then the third way is the customization. The customization is the antidote to commoditization. It is specifically exists to defy the law of gravity, because when you customize for individuals, you cannot help but be differentiated. And that's what decommoditization is. It means you're differentiated. You're working with individual customers on exactly what they want. So customizing your offerings is the third way to be able to do that. And then again, I wrote a whole book on that. There's two chapters in the experience economy on mass customizing to create that individual value within people.
That's a great point, and let's end on that note. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us today. And to all of you watching us, be sure to pick up your digital copy on your way out. There's a 20% voucher code on the top of your screen, so you can buy it both as a digital or a physical copy. Our next event will be hosted by Harvard Business Review in Boston, and it'll take place on June 25th. It will be by Shannon Paulson, who is the author of the upcoming book. It's released in September later this year, called The Grit Factor: Courage, Resilience and Leadership in the Most Dominated Organizations in the World. So she'll talk about how can you cultivate that grit factor and thrive through this pandemic. Don't forget to sign up for that event and other events on our website. There's also going to be a Michael Porter event in July on American politics. Until then, stay healthy, everyone, and let's refresh, redesign, and renew our customer experiences. Thank you, everyone.